the gigantic insurance fraud against the American people that then supported our banking system and led to reams and reams of credit being spread across our nation with no money behind it whatsoever, can continue making seven-figure salaries. Congressman Gary Peters, Democrat from Michigan, a member of the House Financial Services Committee. Matt Bishop, American business editor and New York bureau chief for The Economist magazine. Representative Peters, what is the underlying philosophy we're dealing with these pay conversations, and why are we talking about pay instead of talking about capitalism and basically making it illegal to gamble with the country's money on Wall Street?
Well, I think it is a broader issue that you bring up, and that's why I've introduced the Shareholder Empowerment Act. Because I think that in the long run, what we need to do is to make sure that the owners of capital, which is really the true capitalism, the owners of capital can rein in these managers who pay themselves outrageous bonuses, not in the interest of the shareholders. We need to make sure there's independence,
right.
Independence with compensation committees, independence with the chairman of the board, so we don't have a cozy relationship where these folks continue to enrich themselves at the expense of the owners of the company, which are the shareholders, and the shareholders of the American people who have 401k plans and IRAs and pension plans. I think that is what we need to do going forward, is to make sure that we have that independence and hold directors accountable for these pay schemes that we're seeing in these institutions.
There's a broader issue, though, here. If you understand how the vast majority of the money was made on Wall Street the past 10 years, it was made through the legalization of all sorts of credit derivatives in terms of the profitability of some of these banks, where they're largely making money speculating on America's future ability to pay its bills, proprietary trading, gambling. It's a huge casino, basically, and the taxpayer is the one who's on the hook for that. So I could be a shareholder of a company that makes a fortune gambling with taxpayer money and be very happy as long as I don't mind completely screwing the American taxpayer. How do you manage for that?
No, you're absolutely right, and that's why we need to make sure there's regulations there. As you know, in Congress, in our committee, in Financial Services Committee, we just passed a bill dealing with derivatives, making sure there's more transparency, making sure there's really margins, really actually money backing up these contracts.
You did that, but there's a couple, there's still huge loopholes, and you did that, but now I just have to set up offshore in a foreign account, or I have to claim to be an end user. There's still some pretty big loopholes there, no?
We still need to have cooperation from the international community. There's no question, but I think we are seeing from across the ocean with the international community understands that we all have to come together in order to do that. But you can't have this shell game that we had with these derivatives. It was basically a large card game, a house of cards that collapsed. And so that regulation has to be in place as well. You want to have transparency, you want to have clearing, you want to have money exchange, but you also want to make sure there's actually money backing these things up. We know that didn't occur in AIG, and we are all paying the price for that. So there's no question you need to do both. You've got to empower shareholders, but you also need to have a regulatory framework that does not allow unbridled greed and speculation to rule the roost.
Which so far we still have. In fact, banks are too bigger than they've ever been, and risk has never been more easily taken by the few banks like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan that are being given the taxpayer money. Matt Bishop, from The Economist, your perspective on what appear to be politically expedient efforts to look like you're doing something by hand-picking who gets paid and who doesn't at a couple of companies. I look at it, it strikes me as almost preposterous.
Yeah, the rules of the game need to be changed, and at the moment there's a lot of gestures and symbolism, and they're picking on individuals and saying, these guys shouldn't get the pay. Others, though, carry on making a fortune. And so you can change the rule. I don't mind there being a casino capitalism. Part of it is a casino, and it's worked very well over the years.
For the money to move from one point to the other.
But what's happening at the moment is that people are the biggest losers in the casino are walking outside, and the government's taxing all the poor people outside the casino and giving them the money and saying, go back in there and actually have some more money from the government and play even bigger stakes. So at the moment, there's no real reform process going on.
It actually sounds like theft.
It could be theft. I think in a way the government has been as much to blame, though, as Wall Street.
Of course, and it's legalized.
So they're giving the money, and what are you going to do?
Exactly. I mean, if the money machine is going to Washington, D.C. to say, listen, if you close these loopholes, it'll close down the money machine, whether it's end users or anything else. I mean, how does Washington fight that, Representative Peters? There's such a money machine in this casino, and there's all this talk, Citigroup, all these lobbyists, and the casino sends its money to D.C. to get exemptions to allow the money machine to continue.
Well, we have to continue to do it. I think we've made a very meaningful first step with the derivative bill that came out of the Financial Services Committee. You're absolutely right. We need to make sure that those same kind of rules are across the ocean as well, and our partners around the world that are doing that. But we've got to continue to move forward with this regulation. We've made those steps. But again, I think it's longer term, too, is that you've got to engage the owners of these capital in companies all across the spectrum to make sure that you don't have these outrageous pay packages, and that you align the incentives for these folks not on short-term profits, but on the long-term viability, long-term wealth of shareholders, which means not making short-term bets where you can make a fortune in the short run, and if you lose, you have really no repercussions, and it ends up being the taxpayers that pay for it. That is wrong. People who make bets that lose, they should lose, not the taxpayers, and their incentive systems need to be aligned for long-term wealth, restricted stock that vests over many years instead of making a quick dollar today and then running to the next firm that's going to give you the hot deal. That's not in anybody's best interest, and exactly what you're saying, it furthers the casino mentality.
I mean, it's in the best interest of those who run the casino. Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. I really enjoy your magazine, and I thank you for making it as good as you do. Truly, thank you, Matt. Straight ahead, it's a test of Palin power. Sarah Palin